Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to go through the introduction while we're just waiting for everyone to still join. There are those that are still joining us. But good morning to everyone and welcome to our first online webinar. My name is Sarah Haffenden and I'm the Marketing Communications Manager at UKZN Extended Learning, also known as UEL. In case you are unfamiliar with UEL, we are the continuing education unit of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and we offer all the short courses on behalf of the university. So why are we offering these webinars? So at UEL, we are in full support and compliance with President Cyril Ramaphosa's directive of a national lockdown, which was obviously issued to address the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are embracing the changes and are working on a number of projects aimed at providing free access to learning materials during this lockdown period. So one of the projects is our online learning webinars. So this webinar is the first in our learning lockdown initiative, and it is a 4-part series focusing on our world is changing, shouldn't you? And obviously the whole fourth industrial revolution. So we will also be launching a labor law series. This starts on Tuesday next week. So just do have a look at our final slide at the end of the webinar for further details on this, or you can visit our website, www.ukznextendedlearning.com. So I'd now like to introduce you to our guest speaker for today, Atul Padalkar. Atul is the founder of BizFarm, an unfunded business incubator and accelerator based in Durban since 2010. He is passionate about the fourth industrial revolution and teaches digital marketing at various universities. So we have invited him today to conduct the series of digital seminars. And obviously this is the first one, the topic being Our World is Changing, Shouldn't You? So please join me in welcoming Atul. Atul, are you still there?
Yes, Sarah, and very good morning to everybody. It's great to have everybody here. Thank you very much, Sarah. So I want to say a very big morning to everybody. And yeah, this is an amazing time. It's a Thursday, literally 2 weeks into the lockdown. So I hope you and your family are all coping pretty well. And it's an interesting time in our lives, and the world is changing. In fact, rather a bit too faster for many of our preferences. So that's the reason why we thought we will have this session to help our corporates and participants and well-wishers of UEL to see how we are able to cope and how do we respond to this change, which is now a part of our integral lives. So it's 1 week to go, and can you believe it? It's going to be a long weekend from tomorrow, and that excitement which we normally would expect to have at this time just doesn't seem to be there. But anyway, these are interesting times, and therefore, because the world is changing so fast, the imperative is upon us to change as well. So I think as we get started into this program, I would like to say that that UEL and UKZN owe a big thank you for taking this initiative. And whatever opinions or views that I express are pretty much my entirely own. They're not necessarily that of UEL. So with that and no further ado, very few quick house rules, and I know many of us may be fairly new to a experience of a webinar. So you might experience from time to time the signal going off, and if that happens, do not panic. It is just because Zoom is really overloaded on these times. So if that happens, just don't do anything. You will see a square box which will show reconnecting. Be patient, don't click anything, and once that happens, then you will be fine. So we're also, because we have a substantial number of participants in this class, what we will do is towards the end, but there will still be an opportunity. There's also going to be a chat and then of course some poll. So you will have opportunity to exchange your views, share your ideas. And let me be honest in saying that this is one of the first few times when we've done these kind of webinars. So I would like to, for myself and also for the team, apologize in advance should we create any lack of expectation kind of situations. So we would of course welcome all your ideas and suggestions in how we could improve this, and of course we would love to learn how you benefited from it, and going forward how you would like this to go out. So Sarah has given a quick overview of the agenda, and what I would like to jump in into is by saying that the last 2 weeks have probably been the most interesting times of our lives for almost not just all of us in Durban in South Africa, but also from the world's point of view. We are at a crossroads where we just don't know what's really going on, and we have no clue whether this lockdown is going to carry on for a little bit longer, or is this the end of it, or is this probably just the beginning of it? We don't really know. And this is the nature of how things have been actually happening in the world. And interesting lessons are coming out from this kind of an experience. And it's a real test, I would say, for mankind to see how are we able to adapt and adjust. Now, if you've been watching the news, the last few weeks have been talking about the discovery of the cradle of mankind, finding fossils which go back to more than 2 million years old. And this was Homo erectus. Homo erectus was basically able to survive and adapt and obviously go beyond Africa for one very simple reason, that it was extremely adaptable. It was also able to work as a team. And I think in this changing world, the challenge for mankind is how are we able to work together with each other rather than finger pointing it to someone else and say, no, you started the bug, and those sorts of things. So it's a very interesting time, not only in our lives, but of that of humanity as such, because we don't really know what this normal is going to look like. We are currently sitting in a world which people have called as the VUCA world, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. We have no clue what's happening. We have little idea of what's going to happen. And these are times where the volatility is going to demand of us vision, clarity of thought, a sense of purpose of where we want to take our companies, where we want to take our organizations, where we want to take our families together. Because this is a sudden change. It's happened when we did not expect it the least. So it has happened suddenly, and vision is what will help us to stay true on the course of where we really want to progress. The uncertainty, of course, needs to be met with understanding. And this is a great time for us to understand each other, know our neighbors better. And interestingly enough, a lot of that happens on social media, often on WhatsApp. Abiding by the rules of the country. And I think nobody is above this. I think this in the last couple of days has been demonstrated already. So nobody's really beyond. And therefore, the understanding is the response to uncertainty. Likewise, there's complexity, which is a whole lot of things taking place simultaneously, which we do not know the connection and relationship between. So we are trying to see clarity, we are trying to achieve focus, we are trying to combat complexity with clarity. And the ambiguity is going to be combated likewise by agility, which means we need to respond very quickly sometimes. We cannot be sitting back and expecting to take things for granted as normal. So these are really interesting times for us, and I think the objective of this session is not only to understand what's really happening, but also to respond. How, if the world is changing so dramatically, can all of us together be able to respond better than what we would be doing? So this is an exercise in itself, and I think this exercise has also shown us that as human beings, we've gone through a fair amount of response to this COVID-19 phenomenon. You might recall that 2 weeks ago, or a little more than 2 weeks ago, when the lockdown was announced, one of the first early responses of many people was to just rush into the shops and try and buy as much as they could of food, milk, medicines, and stuff even which they don't need. And that was, of course, a very clear highlight of the inequality in our society, and that was fear. So that fear has now started subsiding a bit when we see that supplies are not really an issue, when we see that what necessities we need to have in terms of groceries and stuff are still all available. So we are not really now too worried that will this thing go completely out of availability, which is now starting to take us into from the fear zone to the next zone, which is learning zone. And this learning has been a sense of adaptation. We are trying to adjust to the new reality. We are trying to adjust to changing our mindset. We're trying to make the best use of time that we have on hand. And some of that, of course, goes into doing things which we always wished we could, cleaning the garage for some people, washing the car for some people, talking to family members away and near for many of us, and so forth. So this has started shifting our mindset in terms of where we are from the fear zone moving into a learning zone. So after the movies are done, after all the chores are done, we now start going back and we start asking ourselves some really fundamental questions. We try to find out what is the purpose of our life, for example, and philosophical as it might sound to be. These are quiet times for us. These are meditative hours for us. These are times for reflection between us as maybe individuals, sometimes even as families. So it's a fantastic experience. It is something which we always wished for. But guess what? It got given to us in such a surprising kind of a situation that we are trying to figure out how to use and make the best use of this. So I want to focus a little bit on the growth zone. And the growth zone is basically where we are able to find areas and opportunities, how we can empathize with others, how we can connect with others, how we can express our gratitude, how we can be in one with the universe and our plan of what we want to do for ourselves, for our organizations, so forth. So the growth zone is a very important and useful area for us to be in. And this growth zone has also highlighted that the nature of work, which we have been traditionally used to, has started shifting in a fairly dramatic kind of way in the last few weeks or so. So, traditionally we've always had this concept of working from home, but it wasn't really, mainstream. So it was something when people had challenges at home, people would typically ask to leave early. And we, as you know, in South Africa, we come from a very industrial kind of a society. So in a typical industrial society, one has to go to work, one has to present at work, one has to work in a physical proximity of colleagues as a team. And now what has suddenly happened is that this has changed, which means the team is sitting in their respective houses, probably in pajamas and slippers, and we are trying to make things happen. Interestingly enough, this happened towards the last week of March, which in many companies' cases was also the year end. So a lot of things had to be done very quickly. How could we do that? Because our systems were not really geared for that. Everything needs a signature on a piece of paper, for example. So how do we collectively deliver a task is something which wasn't really coming together for us. So these times have highlighted a very important thing of how do we display maturity, leadership, a sense of responsibility, and how do we see that this is not exactly 3 days paid leave sitting at home to do nothing and relaxing. No, if we are looking for a salary at the end of the month, then I think it's pretty imperative that we just find a completely new way of learning. And therefore, the world, as I would think, after the lockdown is over, and it will be over at some point soon, we don't know when, what is going to happen is a lot of these changes which have started getting to happen, which were always peripheral but have now become centerpiece to the way our organizations live and work or deliver value, it's become very central to it. And this is remote work. So remote work is pretty much, I think now with this kind of an event, really getting accepted as the way to work. So my guess is that the future of our work is pretty much going to be mixed, which means we would probably work a certain percentage of our working time at our respective organizations, at our respective offices, but also we will have a fair amount of work which we will be able to deliver from home or elsewhere or out of sight for that matter. So the mainstreaming of remote work is going to start changing a lot of rules. Some of these are that clocking in or clocking out or coming to work on time isn't really going to start becoming so important. It's pretty much going to be guided by not how long you work, but what you deliver. So delivery is going to become very central to our effectiveness. And more than the number of hours or showing the bosses that I'm busy, more than that, I think what matters is how you get your job done. So this is starting to take us into typically the fourth industrial revolution. As you know, UEL has already done a few workshops on the reality of the fourth industrial revolution. And we are starting to see a lot of those things which we were only earlier talking about becoming reality for many of us. The question is, are we as a workforce aligned, prepared, and ready for what is now called the gig economy? So the gig is often determined as a small event. So when singers or rock stars have events, it's pretty much referred to as a gig. But this gig also is increasingly starting to get the significance of also gig as in a gigabyte or as in data, because in order to be effective in this new gig economy, what one needs is data. And data is pretty much of two different kinds. On the one hand, I would think that data means having information, having the right information. That's one thing. But the second thing is also having connectivity, as in having a good internet connection to be able to work from home. And I know that many of us might be actually feeling very remorseful that why did you leave your laptop at the office, because now there's very little opportunity for you to go back to the office and pick it up. So I think one of the changes our organizations are going to see is probably having the freedom and flexibility to take your laptop home, if that applies. And in cases of where the work is somewhere, let's say like a receptionist's work, that job description is pretty much going to change, because no longer are we really welcoming physical visitors into our workplace, but we are probably going to see those visitors visiting, let's say, our website, for example, visiting our chat boxes, for example. So the job of a receptionist, rather than being a face-to-face front view of the office, is going to also become the visitor into the digital space of the organization. But is our receptionist prepared for it? Is she equipped, or is he equipped for those kind of skills of how to transfer a new reality into that? We are seeing this disrupting the world of education also to a certain extent. The metrics, I would think, have an extremely challenging time right now. But from what we are all seeing, the television channels have started coming into the picture. The mobile networks have started coming into the party in terms of delivering content for students to continue to prepare for their exams and carry on with studies as much as possible. What does this mean for an organization? I think quite a lot. And we will probably discuss about this during our Q&A session also. One of the common questions in this regard is, what does this do to jobs, for example? So I think the nature of work has changed. And in that sense, the nature of how an organization creates value, delivers value, monetizes value is also going to change. And this is pretty much captured by the business model canvas. It's pioneered by Steve Jobs, by Alex Osterwalder, and quite a few academics. So this has now become very central to it, and the UEL's MDP program, for example, dwells in depth on how to adapt or how to utilize your organization's adaptability in terms of creating and delivering new value for its stakeholders. Uh, One of the things that now is going to be an imperative for us is to pivot this business model. And pivoting is essentially a change of strategy, but without change of losing the vision. So this is basically what is going to require us to think about ourselves and our organizations in a different way. What value proposition do we bring to our stakeholders? What is the change in the way we do business? And maybe if I were to give an example, we all know that the sale of alcohol has been curtailed during this lockdown period. But hang on, that very same alcohol can also be utilized to produce disinfectants for that matter. So it is essentially a complete repurposing of that very same ingredient, which is not allowed to be sold under different circumstances, to a totally new application process for that matter. So It just means that the business has to gear itself up to a very different kind of a situation. Likewise, we are also seeing a lot of changes to happen in industries like hospitality, like tourism. The aeroplanes are pretty much on the ground now. The hotels are pretty much empty. But at the same time, we are battling to find beds for hospitals. So, isn't there perhaps an opportunity why these empty hotel beds could not be maybe used as hospitals instead? And this changes the entire business model from what they are actually and originally designed for to be used for a completely different set of activities. And this needs a whole change in outlook, a whole adaptation to how we are using our skills. And this skill set, traditionally, which we've seen as a set of broad skills, something fundamental, which is basically necessary for any profession, to be also supplemented with a set of what we call deep skills. And this is deep specific expertise. This is the expertise which you really apply because it is exceptional in many ways. Almost everybody, for example, in digital marketing is expected to have skills in, let's say, email or user experience or graphic designing and so forth. But if you have specialist expertise in one specific domain, that actually makes you a very valued digital marketer, for example. So having these completely new skill sets has really become a very critical imperative for any one of us to survive. And likewise, for the organization to adapt, what it requires us to become is a skilled and a learning organization. Now, very often, we've often believed that, once you get your degree, you graduate out of an institution, you finish your metric, you start looking for a job, and that's basically where your learning is expected to stop. Not anymore, unfortunately. Learning has today become a lifelong process. So it's not something which stops, but it is an absolutely ongoing kind of a process. And to do that, what all of us in different organizations have to recognize is that we need to set aside time to make sure that we are relevant and we are skilled enough to keep ourselves going, to keep ourselves up to date. And how to do that? Well, interestingly enough, there are processes for that. Most organizations, for example, have a workplace skills plan. We set aside money on the skills development levy, for example. But it's now becoming increasingly evident that we need to make this into a process which is going to be fairly central to the way an organization works. So this has often fallen into the lap of human resources, but it's no longer merely a human resources kind of an imperative. It is pretty much, I think, an organization wide imperative. And top management needs to start looking at skilling up of the workforce as a very central process to its survival and of its growth, because it is these skills, it is these abilities to deliver different value, which is what is really going to make organizations different and relevant. Because if you do not, the rate of change is so fast that the organization and its products or its solutions start becoming very irrelevant to the needs of the stakeholder. And we are seeing that happening already. When large parastatals, for example, do not keep their game sharp enough, they start becoming irrelevant. And all it needs is economic downturn, which starts then putting these organizations into an even more position of difficulty. And we don't want our organizations to be in that position. So what does it mean? It just means that we need to make the process of learning, of becoming a learning organization very central to how we do business. What does this take? Well, not really too much, except the one important thing, which I think is discipline. So freedom is great to have. It's a fantastic feeling. It gives you the sense of being liberally open to do what you feel like doing. But freedom also comes with a lot of responsibility. And this responsibility requires discipline. It's it's very easy, for example, if you decide to work from home, to have a lovely lunch in the afternoon and take a nap, and maybe the nap goes a bit longer, and there goes what we are supposed to do out of its deadline zone. Now we don't want that to happen, because at the end of the day we are responsible to make sure that we fit in within a team to deliver the specific responsibility that has been given to each one of us. So that's very important. And even in a normal work life, for example, we see there are certain people who are doers, certain people who are showing they're doing, and then there are a few quiet people at the back who will actually deliver the work itself. So every organization has different kinds of people, but I think what's important is that for each one of us, how we become valuable members of a team, putting our skills and expertise to its best possible use. So this very broadly, I think, is the backdrop of how important it is for us to adapt to the new reality, to recognize that this is a very fast changing world, and how do we therefore adapt is going to become a very critical question for all of us to think about. So university extended learning, as Sarah alluded in the beginning of introduction, for especially those of you who might have missed out that part because of having joined late, UEL is essentially a part of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, but its main purpose is to help continuous learning, extended learning. So this is an independent unit, but a part of UKZN, and its main purpose is to help continuous education to be made possible. And therefore, in view of the fact that we cannot waste this available time, what the whole team I'm a part of, I'm an extended part of it to, in a way, have put together is a series of upcoming webinars. And these webinars are essentially to help those who are interested to understand how different skills can be taken up, how different understanding can be obtained in areas of labor, for example. There are some sessions which we've set up for entrepreneurs as well. So how can entrepreneurs benefit from, let's say, many different government schemes which have been put up there? How can labor law have different implications? All of these are different kinds of webinars. And there's a whole series of this. We'll come back to this slide a little bit later again. But this is essentially a series, and we are trying to see how we could, with this experiment of today, make this different way of learning, make this flexible way of learning pretty much central to the way we learn normally. And it opens up a lot of different opportunities for us. For example, all these webinars are recorded, the slides will be made available. And this means that for if any reason someone is not able to make up being a part of the live session, you could certainly still benefit from it even after the session by taking a look at all these slides and information. So for the first time, we wanted to keep this webinar fairly short. We are just under 30 minutes now. And what I would like to also take this opportunity is to say a very big thanks to Simon Tankard, who's the CEO of Extended Learning, Nashlin Maharaj, who's been the driver of this entire initiative. She has been able to put this whole thing together, and all of us have been able to operate from home. Sarah is our co-host for this morning, and behind the scenes, giving us a lot of great support in terms of tech is Sujay, who also celebrates his birthday. So Sujay, from all of us for today, a very happy birthday to you. You have 58 people on right now wishing you a very happy birthday. All of us join you in doing that. And finally, in closing, what I would like to say is that this is not the first and the last of our interaction. This is perhaps the beginning of a new journey between all of us. So to take you further into this journey and to see how UKZN UEL will be able to assist you, we have Sindiswa and Vinosha, whose details are right now up on the screen, who are more than happy to be able to have a discussion with you to see how this partnership can go probably further than from just this introductory session. So I think this is the time when we will come up with some question and answers. We will also open up a small poll because feedback is always great for us to have. So this is an initial and a beginning kind of a initiative. You will probably see that on your screen some questions and polls have started coming up. So feel free to kind of click wherever you're able to see is the most relevant answer to that. The answers are coming in nice and thick. You see, the one thing I always miss out is when it's a physical face-to-face kind of a class, it's always nice to have that face-to-face interaction. So in this kind of a setup, it's not always possible to have that because we also need to be mindful to, make sure that we are focused on what we are here for. And therefore, we've tried to keep this webinar very short. And we are now trying to find ways of how the interactivity between the participants, presenters, and co-hosts can be enhanced further still. Uh, and one way of doing that is obviously capturing this through a Q&A session, which you're seeing up there right now. So this is mainly to start getting a sense of how is everybody feeling, how are you coping with the lockdown. And I can see that most of our answers have kind of stabilized for now. So we move on in that case to the next question, and we are now trying to see how next best we can take this to the next level and find out from all the participants as to how would you like to, does this work for you. It's something which is very different. We have ourselves not done this. We should have done this, but now we know we need to do this a bit more often. We would like to, of course, get your feedback to see how we could do this better. We would be finding out whether this kind of an initiative works for you. We would also like to be interested in finding out what are the new topics that you might find interesting, because I think the one change that's likely to come from the new way of learning is pretty much on demand kind of learning. So when you know that you need to learn a specific skill, just put up your hand and say, hang on, I would like to improve my skills on XY kind of subject, and we will try and see how best we could quickly respond to that. So this is a conversation, this is an open dialogue. We're trying to see how we could take this further going ahead from here. And I'm seeing an overwhelming sense of yes to an extremely high percentage. We're sitting at about 97% people who are interested in learning new skills online. And yes, I think this is a very important feedback, because very often people might think of this as just another leave or just another holiday. But I think if we are able to use this to our benefit, that would be really awesome. So we are moving this further on and trying to see how all these answers are looking. So the poll is kind of closed just now. And yeah, all these sessions are pretty much an effort to see how we are able to assist you. Uh, so I want to say a very big thank you to the team. I want to say a big thank you to you for finding time, staying with us, being a part of this experience. We are grateful for you for spread this very valuable Thursday morning with us to participate. And I hope what I was able to share was useful and relevant. It added some value to you. It's some good food for thought, I hope. It gets you reflecting and thinking and talking about. And obviously, if you want to pick up your phone and speak to our colleagues, they are more than still available. So you've got those details still up here. You're more than welcome to note down the contact details of our colleagues. And of course, the UEL website still remains up and alive. You're more than welcome to drop in a line, and we will be, of course, happy to interact with you. So with those few remarks, I would just like to say a big thank you. Take care, stay at home, stay safe. With the Easter break coming up, make the best of it. Continue with your learning journey. And once again, thank you very much to all of us for being here. I hand you back over to Sarah for her last and concluding remarks after this.
Thanks, Atul. Thank you. I'd just like to firstly say thank you to Atul for his insightful presentation today. And we do look forward to your upcoming webinars. So just to mention again, the video and the slides will be available on the UEL website. So we will be sending that link directly to you once it is ready. We will also in this email allow you to give us any other feedback or comments. Maybe you have some suggestions for upcoming webinars. You're welcome to respond directly there as well. And yeah, I'd also like to thank all our attendees for joining us and making this webinar a success. So just do take notes on the slide now, the upcoming webinars, and please, you do have to RSVP individually for each one to secure your place. I know there was a question, somebody asked, do we need to sign up individually? Unfortunately, we do. We do have limitations into how many guests we can have. So instead of just signing everyone up for all the webinars and they falling within different areas, we would just ask you if you could sign up for each one that you're interested in. And yeah, so the first two coming up next week on the 14th of April on Tuesday is the COVID-19 Labor Law for Businesses, Entrepreneurs. And this is a two-part series. This is part one. And then on Thursday, Atul will be coming through again, and he will be talking on how to grow your business with a virtual team. So please do RSVP for these if you're interested. Those two are available to RSVP at the moment. The rest of the links will be released on a weekly basis. So just also, we have a few online courses that we are offering for free during the lockdown period. So we're sharing our own courses as well as partnering with other organizations in order to provide free access. For example, we have partnered with Advantage Learn in order to offer free mathematics courses from grade 8 up to first year university. And then also in Atul's presentation, if you were interested in the VUCA concept, this is unpacked in further detail in our Visionary Leadership online courses. So this is a three-part course series, and they're all available for free at the moment. Otherwise, we hope you enjoyed this session. Just having one quick look to see if there's any other questions that were not answered. Yeah. If any of the other questions were not answered, I will make a note and try and contact you directly. But as well, please do provide your info in the email that we do send out with the attachment to the webinar. Otherwise, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.